We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, we are expecting an announcement, inshallah, soon. Tomorrow may be Eid, it may not be. Nothing has been confirmed yet, but inshallah, as soon as we hear from Najaf and Qom, we will be putting out a statement, inshallah. In the meantime, you can join us in our discussion here where we discuss Islamic duties and practices. If you have any question that you'd like to send in, please send them in via the WhatsApp, the email address. If you're watching on social media, on the Facebook or on YouTube, put them in the comment section. Any questions, inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer all of your inquiries. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing this evening?
Alhamdulillah, fine.
MashaAllah, Sheikhna, we're at the end almost.
Exactly.
Maybe tomorrow we're fasting, maybe tomorrow is Eid, but the Ramadan's gone very, very quickly.
Exactly. Alhamdulillah.
Sheikhna, when it comes to the end of Ramadan and Eid, there is a zakat that we pay, Zakat Al-Fitra. Okay? And it is normally to do with people that are in your household. Now, what happens if I've got guests coming over for iftar? Do I have to pay Zakat al-Fitr on their behalf or not? They came before the sun had set.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Zakat al-Fitr is mandatory and becomes wajib on the host if his guests arrive before the sunset of the eve of the Eid, basically. And of course there are two conditions with this regard. It becomes wajib on the host to pay their Zakat al-Fitra if, number one, with the consent of the host, number two, with the condition of those guests becoming his dependents. In other words, let's say I go to my parents' house on the eve of the Eid, before the Adhan al-Maghrib, before the sunset, and I want to stay there for 2 days, enjoy the Eid with them.
Nice.
So my parents will be spending on me, for example, food, drink, and everything. So I become dependent in this situation and this scenario. Then it becomes wajib on the host to basically pay the Zakat al-Fitra on those who are dependent on him. So that's how it works. But if you just go there for an hour and come out, that's not to be recognized as becoming dependent or mu'il. So basically, the one should make sure that he gets the consent from the host and to be his dependent.
I see. What if they come after the sunset? Then do they still have to pay the Zakat al-Fitr?
No, after the sunset of the eve of the Eid, no, it's not mandatory, it's not wajib to give the Zakat al-Fitra for the guests, even if he was invited before the Maghrib, as long as they have passed this edge or this limit of the sunset and the Adhan Maghrib, then no requirement for them, for the host to pay their Zakat. I remember that once the Maulana came for our local center to give the last lecture on the eve of the Eid, and to stay for the Eid as well, to basically do the Salat al-Eid. So he came to our house, but he remained in his car till the Adhan was called. And then he came inside the house because he was going to stay overnight in our house. So he's going to be dependent on us.
I see.
Dependent as a mu'il as well. So yes, so that's what he did, that he remained in his car. And then he came inside after Adhan al-Maghrib.
Sheikhna, is, according to His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sistani, is it permissible to pay the Zakat al-Fitr on the day of Eid, maybe after Eid Salah?
The Sayyid mentions that as a obligatory precaution, احتياط لزومي, not to delay the payment of Zakat al-Fitra after the Salah of the Eid. So make sure you pay it before Salat al-Eid. Of course, others may differ by saying mustahab precaution. So you can, yes, but mustahab to pay it before Salah.
Shaykh, if a person who is not obliged to give Zakat al-Fitra pays it voluntarily, such as a son who gives it on behalf of his father or a friend who pays on behalf of his friend, does this discharge his obligation?
Yes, it does. You can basically pay other people's zakat if you want. If you want to, that's fine. Let's say you have sons or daughters studying abroad, and you want to pay their zakat fitr, that's fine. You can pay. There's no issue with it. Guests, as we said, if they come, then you have to pay their zakat fitr. If they stay overnight and become dependent, so of course, yeah.
Shaykhna, if someone who's elderly and poor, can we give the Zakat al-Fitr to him?
There's no issue with it. If this individual, let's say he was a grandfather, let's say a brother who was elderly, uncle, and they were actually in need, they are poor, you know, part of the category of the fuqara al-masakin ala kulli hal, as mentioned in the categories of the zakat we paid to. If this individual was somebody who was in need, of course you can pay them. Especially if they were what? If they were relatives, brother, uncle, sister, and so forth. We have a verse in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Anfal, verse 75. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلَى بِبَعْضٍ. The family members are nearer to one another. So we try to pay to the ulul arham, those who are closer to us in terms of the kinship and blood relatives. Of course, if this individual does not commit any sin by spending this money in haram, so you give them the zakat, but you know that they won't spend it on buying alcohol, for example, or pork meat, then you can pay them, of course.
I see. Shaykhna, question for one of our viewers, and that is, what is disposable of Zakat al-Fitra?
There are 8 categories of disposing and paying the zakat to. As mentioned in the books of the fiqh, number 1 is the poor, number 2 is the destitute, number 3 is the collector of the zakat, the one who collects the zakat. Nice. Number 4, those whose hearts are won, مؤلف قلوبهم. Let's say Abu Sufyan in that time. You know, you pay in order to buy his hearts, because they would cause a danger on the Islamic state in that time, for example. السهم المؤلف قلوبهم. For buying slaves and setting them free, you pay them as well to set them free. The debtors who are unable to pay their debts, again, those who can't pay their debts. See how Islam makes things straightforward, that you won't be homeless or you won't have to go to prison when there's a government, a just government like the Islamic government, run by Rasulullah, run by Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, who can pay your debts off from the zakat money. Number 7, for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal, fi sabilillah, in overall. And finally, number 8, for the stranded traveler, those who are stranded in the middle of the way, they lose their money, their passport, everything. We pay zakat for them to get home and to help them to reach to their final destination.
Shaykhna, some questions from some of our viewers here. What is the ruling on smoking shisha? Is it haram or not? If yes, no, why?
Shisha and smoking is not haram in overall. Also in some opinions that it is discouraged, but it's not haram. But in anyhow, for the one who is fasting, it would break the fast. Okay. So you have to avoid it while you're fasting in the daytime of the month of Ramadan.
Excellent. Also, there was one here. Can one pray in a Sunni mosque in a Sunni way by folding his hands?
You're not allowed, no. Unless there is a life-threatening situation in which taqiyya comes in to save your life, for example, from unexpected or definite harm, bodily harm. Otherwise, if there's no taqiyya, you're not allowed. No, the salah will be batil. You have to pray the way in which you have to pray, like we pray in Masjid al-Haram and Medina as well. You have to pray normally, without folding your hands, and on the turba or on the earth, anything like there's known to be earth, for example, it's halal to be prostrated on.
Inshallah. Shaykhna, is righteousness or being adil a creation or disposal of Zakat al-Fitra?
It's not mandatory for the one to pay the Zakat al-Fitra to one who must be adil or righteous, as you mentioned, which means the ones who adheres to the Ahkam al-Sharia and Islamic rules, and who doesn't insist on disobedience. But as I've said, the problem is if you know that you're paying the Zakat Fitra to somebody who would buy alcohol with it openly, he would openly break his fast and so forth with haram, then of course you have to avoid giving them zakat.
So is it obligatory to pay Zakat al-Fitra on behalf of one who used to break his fast with haram and did not fast all the days of Ramadan?
This question is about paying on behalf, not to. So
yes.
Two different questions, you have to be careful. Yes, you have to pay on behalf on the one who is dependent on you, of course. Then you have to pay wajib their zakat al-fitra. As we mentioned, even if you have let's say a servant, as we have back in the Middle East, in the Gulf country, they have servants who are dependent on their employees, for example. Then they have to pay them, to pay on behalf, not to them, on behalf of this non-Muslim servant, zakat al-fitra as well.
Ahsan. Shaykhna, is it permissible for one who is not a Sayyid to give zakat al-fitra to a Sayyid?
No, it's not permissible as a precaution for one who is not a Sayyid to give his zakat to the Sayyid. The non-Sayyid gives to the non-Sayyid.
Ahsan. According to his eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Khoi, rahmatullah alayh, the one who does not pay khums, does he need to pay khums before the payment of zakat al-fitra?
Yes, the one needs to deduct the amount of the khums and then pay zakat al-fitra. It has to be a purified zakat you're paying to.
Shaykhna, can I give a loan to a poor person and then adjust his intentions to zakat al-fitra when it becomes due?
Yeah, you can give the zakat al-fitra as a loan. As I've said, the intention is important when paying zakat al-fitra. So you give it as a loan, and then on the eve of the Eid, you make the intention of being as zakat al-fitra with this intention. That should be fine. So he can keep the money as a loan next to his money, his wealth. But when it comes the eve of the Eid, he makes the intention of being as zakat al-fitra.
Inshallah. Question from one of our viewers, Shaykhna, that is, do we have to pay zakat on the guests who came to visit us on the eve of the Eid?
Not really. I mean, the one who came after the sunset or the Adhan al-Maghrib, then you don't have to pay their zakat al-fitra, basically.
I see.
Basically, they are no longer, as I've said, if they are dependent, we have different issue with the dependents, but they're just going to come and eat and leave. They don't have to pay the zakat al-fitra.
What is the best time to give zakat al-fitra, Shaykh?
Well, the best time, excuse me, to pay zakat al-fitra, basically, the time in which you pay is from the eve of the Eid till the salah of the Eid. That is the time in which you have to pay zakat al-fitra. As I've said, some would argue that is it wajib or mustahab to delay it after salah. That's of course depends on each alim's opinion.
Awesome. An individual gave his zakat al-fitra to a lady in which her husband is disabled and they are getting their financial support from charity, which is not enough. Is she allowed to receive zakat al-fitra?
Yes, it is permissible. I mean, if the one who is in need of this amount, and as I've said before, they don't have an annual income that they can, afford to pay the expenses and costs and so forth, then they can receive Zakat al-Fitra, yes.
Inshallah. Sharing some questions from the WhatsApps and our viewers. Does wet dreams break the fast?
If this issue happened during the daytime while he was sleeping, for example, let's say in Fajr time or after Fajr time, no, there's no issue with it. The one can get up and take his time and do the ghusl and then prepare for Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr. There's no issue. But if it happened during the night time, of course the one should wash before the Fajr time.
Yes.
And if they remained in this situation without washing, then of course the fasting would be batil. They have to make it up later. So they have to make sure that if it's before Fajr, they wash. If it's during the daytime, there's no issue with it.
Shaykhna, a question from one of our viewers is, I want a basic answer for my brothers who are Sunni followers whenever they ask me, why are you a Shia?
Basically, the answer is from a prominent Sunni book with the name of Tariq ibn Asakir. In this book, Ibn Asakir, who is someone who wrote a history about, and he wrote biographies and so forth. So he writes about Imam Ali alayhi salam in his book, about tarjuma of the Imam Ali alayhi salam, some of his narrations and so forth. He states in this narration in Kitab, as I mentioned, Ibn Asakir, Tariq ibn Asakir. He says that he narrates from Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari this hadith, that Jabir says, "Kunna عند النبي صلى الله عليه وآله," that we were sitting with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وآله. فأقبل علي عليه السلام. So Imam Ali alayhi salam arrived. فقال, the Holy Prophet said, والذي نفسي بيده إن هذا وشيعته لهم الفائزون يوم القيامة. The Prophet swear by Allah that the one, by the one who holds my soul, this, which means Imam Ali alayhi salam, and his followers, his Shia, are indeed the winners in the Day of Judgment. Who is narrating this? Ibn Asakir al-Sunni. So the Holy Prophet mentioned the word Shia in his time, in his lifetime. And it doesn't mean that Islam is something else and Shia is something. We are part of the Islam. Islam means Shia to Ali alayhi salam. That's the real Islam. Other than that, we don't have a real Islam other than the Muhammad al Muhammad Islam. The rest is Uthmani, is Amawi, is Abbasi, whatever you want to call it. Islam, Islam in terms of being, shahadatain, that you can marry from them, you can eat their halal meats. But the real Islam is with Muhammad al Muhammad, with Imam Ali alayhi salam. Other than that, Allah would not accept the Islam of any other than this Islam. And that's mentioned in the Quran as well. Inna din 'inda Allah al-Islam. With Allah is Islam only accepted. Nothing else is accepted. So we have to be careful that when we look through these terms and namings, that they have foundations from the times of the Prophet ﷺ. It's not something innovated by, those who came afterwards, after the Imam or the Prophet ﷺ. It was named by the Holy Prophet himself. Then he continues with the tafsir, the hadith. He says, فَنَزَلَ قَوْلَهُ تَعَالَى. Then straight away this ayah was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أولئك هم خير البرية. Surah Bayyinah, ayah 7. So خير البرية. So basically it shows that Imam Ali alayhi salam is present in history with the Prophet, present in the holy narrations, and present in the Holy Quran. So we have to stick with Kitabullah, the Holy Book, and the Prophet's progeny and Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam.
Ahsan, Shaykhna. Excellent. Shaykhna, another question from one of our viewers is, in accordance to the opinion of His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, is nose piercings for females allowed?
Yes, the Sayyid mentions that if it's based on the uruf, on the common norms, if this lady goes in the street, would they say that this is a beautification, zina or not. If they say this is a zina, if this lady goes with a pierced nose, let's say a small, I don't know, gold or something, I don't know what type of zina they want to apply and wear. If they consider it as a zina, as a beautification, then it's haram. She needs to remove it or cover her face. Or if it's not, then it's okay, according to Ayatollah Sistani.
Ahsan. Shaykh, more questions coming in from the viewers and so forth. If after paying Zakat al-Fitra to someone who said he will be collecting it to pay it to the poor, I then found out later that this person did not pay it to the poor and kept it for themselves, do I need to pay the Zakat al-Fitra again?
Best thing to contact the office of the marja' to resolve this issue with them. See if the marja' allows you to, basically to go ahead with it, or you have to repay again.
Excellent. Shaykh, someone from YouTube is asking, when is the best time to perform Salatul Eid?
Salatul Eid begins from the sunrise till the noon time, the midday, Salatul Dhuhr. You have this 5-6 hours, less or more, you can actually perform the Salah. That's why we have 3-4 sessions of Salah, because of the people coming, different times. You have Salah at 7 o'clock, you have Salah at 8 o'clock, you have Salah at 10 o'clock, and so forth. But it has to should be done before Adhan al-Dhuhr, Salat al-Dhuhr.
Okay, Shaykh, one of the viewers, he's apologized because they've asked this question before, but they missed the answer. So we've done this question before. Salam, I have a question. If a man takes out the istikhara, if they should go forward with a marriage proposal and it came out not good, then the girl also did the istikhara and it also came out bad. What can they do, as they really believe they were good for one another and now regret doing the istikhara? Please advise. Both are really upset and do not know what to do.
Basically, the istikhara is there to ask Allah's advice. When you are in hesitation and indecision, that you cannot really make the right decision, uncertainty, for example. In this case, you do the istikhara. Now the istikhara came bad. You have two options. You either give sadaqah, and ignore the istikhara, or you can stick with the istikhara and khalas, remain with the istikhara. And the second is my choice and option. I wouldn't go against the istikhara at all. Or I shouldn't do the istikhara. If I know that this person is the right person for me, there's no need to for istikhara. If you know that this car is a nice car, or this is expensive, you've asked, you've researched about the car, khalas, just buy it. Or if you want to get married to somebody, just marry him. Or if you want to travel, just travel. You don't need istikhara. Istikhara is there when there's hesitation. You're in a 50-50 position. You're unsure of the decision making. In this situation, you take istikhara. But if you do so, you have this option. Give sadaqah, ignore the istikhara, or basically avoid, and stick with the istikhara, unless things and situations change. Maybe this is the best way to solve the situation, is to see the situations change, and afterwards you can go ahead with your decisions.
Shaykh, there's a really good question coming from one of our viewers, considering at the channel you do a lot of checking in regards to the hijab policy. I'm working as a content producer and a TV anchor for an Islamic channel, TV presenter for an Islamic channel. This is a sister, I believe, that's she's speaking. I wear the face veil. And just to look presentable, I do apply kuhl to my eyes, because which I often have been criticized despite being fully covered otherwise. They say it's zina or makes it look attractive, but my intention is just to look awake and not drowsy on camera. Is makeup strictly impermissible, or what are the limits? By the way, she wears a face covering as well.
You see, the kuhl has seen by many of the ulama is a zina and beautification. So the sister needs to remove the kuhl before coming into the public or the television as well.
A question from one of the viewers. The calculation of home should be done by the marja office, or can we calculate it ourselves?
If you know the hukum of how to calculate, how to deduct the khumus, do it yourself, fine. But if you can't, you don't have the information of how to calculate, then go to the marja himself. If you can't reach, go to his representative and try to calculate with him the amount of humus.
Finally, Shaykhna, any update whether tomorrow will be Eid or not? Do you know?
To be honest, we are still waiting for confirmation, and I think there is a bit of delay with this regard in terms of issuing the.
So most likely it'll probably be a Friday then, yeah?
I mean, there's nothing issued yet. I've been checking right now.
No problem. Inshallah, in due course,
Yes.
we'll be receiving something from the holy city of Najaf, or the holy city of Karbala, the holy city of Qum, inshallah, with our esteemed scholars in regards to whether tomorrow or not will be Eid or will be fasting. Thank you very much, Shaykhna, for all your efforts and everything so far. Thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If we have said anything that may have offended you, or something that you may not have been happy with or upsetted you, we do apologize sincerely. Please, we do whatever we can with the most sincere intentions to give you the most accurate ahkam so that you can live your lives day to day, inshallah. If it's Eid tomorrow, then Eid Mubarak. If it is not Eid, then me and Sheikh will be back for another episode of Ahkam SOS here on Imam Hussein TV 3 at 6 p.m. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.